Hello. Okay, we are at episode 3. This is the second time I'm recording it. I recorded it earlier this week, and then for whatever reason, like YouTube is just buffering and it gives me an error. So I think this is kind of perfect because this episode is about identity, and it really has to do with the thoughts that you think about yourself. And before I get started, I want to tell a little story. I just got off the phone with my husband, and I was like, oh, he'll cheer me up. But I was asking him to go do something. We were negotiating on what to do for the weekend. And I was really trying to pitch him this one thing. And he's basically like, no, I don't want to do that. And so it was funny because as I got off the call with him, I was like, okay, fine. But one of the beliefs I have about myself is everything is always working out for me and I always get what I want. So you may just want to adopt those thoughts because it feels a lot better. And it also, there's another thought that goes along with this, or like the thing that I wanted to do, he just didn't want to go there. Right. So we couldn't negotiate. And so he shut that part down. And now he's like, but I'll go this other place. We basically said like anywhere but there kind of thing. And so I've just decided, okay, this is something better, right? So when you get shut down, when the door closes, there must be a better opportunity around the corner. So I wanted to start off with that because I think it's a very interesting way to look at life. And it really helps with failures and it really helps with hearing no. Okay. So let's dive into today's topic, which is identity. Another way to think about this is self concept. And another way I like to think about it is potential self. So I'm going to do some definitions for you so you can really understand what this is, why we use it, and how it's going to help you reach any goal. So, firstly, self concept is an idea of the self constructed from the beliefs one holds about oneself and the responses of others. Okay, so self concept is constructed from the beliefs one holds about oneself and responses of others. And then when you think about identity, if you think about like, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, right? That's usually what people think about as identity is like who I am in a construct of the world. But what I want to tap into is potential self identity. So, potential is the potential that you have, the ability that you have within inside you. Another way to think about this is your future self. So, if you think about what's my goal, what's my vision, what do I want to achieve in this world? What's the quote unquote, I'm going to call it this because most of y'all are saying it this way. I disagree with saying it this way, but I'll tell you why. Most of us will call this our best self, right? I don't agree with our best self because, again, as perfectionists, we could spend all day long trying to fix ourselves. What I believe in is full self love and full self acceptance. So, when we're talking about potential self, we're talking about that version of you that fully loves and accepts themselves, that has overcome imposter syndrome, that is okay with making mistakes, that can mess up and still love yourself and still think that you're okay and still continue to keep going. So, I want you to think about it not just what have you achieved, but more so like how do you treat yourself? And so, this is the definition of potential self identity, which says this refers to the perceived set of qualities, abilities, and possibilities an individual believes they have the potential to develop and embody, essentially representing their ideal self or the person they aspire to become, encompassing not just their current characteristics, but also their future potential. Okay. So, your perceived set of qualities, abilities, and possibilities. So, I'll give you an example. This is like the easiest example for me to give you. So, my identity for my whole life was I'm not a morning person. And it was proven to me every morning because I would wake up miserable and I'd be grouchy. And it was proven to me by society. Like whenever I was growing up at home, like being raised, right? I had two younger brothers, and everybody would always be so afraid of me in the morning because I would wake up just so grouchy and like, rah. And so the world proved it to me. And then in high school, I also won an award. You know the awards they give, like most likely to succeed, prettiest eyes. No, that wasn't my award. My award was moodiest in the morning. So clearly that identity, it just became who I was. I just was like, do not talk to me before noon. I was just so mad and grouchy in the morning because my identity was I'm not a morning person. Now, fast forward until 2016, which was my second year basically in building my business and doing network marketing and doing coaching. And I started to look at other people who had the life I want. So I looked at other women business owners who owned multiple businesses, who were multimillionaires. And I started to look at their identity, like who they were, what they did, how they saw themselves. And I remember seeking out one person. Her name is Susan Sly, and she has kids, she has multiple businesses. She also was diagnosed with MS, and she essentially just said, "No, like not today. Not today, Satan." And she healed herself from MS. She runs marathons. She has multiple successful businesses, and she's very healthy and fit. No matter how old she gets, she's still very healthy and fit. And she gets up at 4:30 a.m. So I just decided I want to represent my identity around other people who have the life that I want. So then I started saying, I'm a morning person. I started to give myself the identity that I am a morning person. I enjoy mornings. I love my morning routine. And then what happened is the world started giving me evidence because I started showing up to that. So I remember I went to a conference with two colleagues. This is when we were in network marketing and we would go around and travel and go to these trainings. And we usually would share a hotel room. And so I remember waking up early in the morning, going to meet with one of my fellow fitness coaches. He was actually a former coach of the Charlotte Hornets, and I wanted to go train with him. I wanted to go work out with him. So it was a Saturday morning. I got up at 5 a.m. I went to do my leg workout with him. And then I came back to the room. And the ladies who I was sharing a room with were truly genetically morning people. And I got back and I was like, got my workout in. I'm feeling great. And they're like, oh, are you a morning person? I was like, yes, I'm a morning person. And I thought it was so funny because in that moment, I tricked them, right? Like I really was never a morning person before, but I started acting like it. I started believing that I was, and then I started to become it. So that is an example, a very simple example of how you use your potential self identity, your future self, the one that has what you want to have, and you start acting like it and embodying it now. Because really, if you think about your identity and if you think about your personality, all it is a collection of belief systems that you have collected over time and practiced. And then as soon as you identify as that, the world will meet you with that. So, what I like to do as you're developing a new potential self, your future self, your identity, I like to meet new people because the new people don't know your old story. They don't know how you used to be. So, I find it to be really fun to go meet new people and introduce yourself in that way. Okay. All right. Now, let's just talk about a couple other things, basically 3 points about potential self identity that will help you here. So, what it helps you do is to focus on future possibilities, right? So, essentially, life can feel really hard and we can get stuck in our story. We can think that our challenges are too big for us. This often happens with the clients that I coach who are in business, especially if you're in your first 5 years of business. Like, we know the stats. We know that the first 5 years is the hardest. We know that you're investing a lot. You're trying to become profitable and sustainable. And so you could get stuck in the middle there and give up. I see a lot of people do that. But when you're focused on your future self, when you're focused on 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years out, instead of your current self, who's still kind of struggling with these challenges and these skills, because it takes skills to develop a successful business, instead of getting stuck in your current self identity, which is based on your present traits and your present challenges and your inability to overcome those challenges, your potential self looks towards someone basically who has the thing already done. And you start to think, okay, this is someone who I could become with consistent growth and development. And so if you view your business challenges while you're in the middle of it as an opportunity for growth, as an opportunity to meet the challenge, as an opportunity to overcome it and become more skilled, more resilient, and to learn the lessons that we need to learn, this counts for relationship stuff, this counts for personal things, and it also counts for business. Focus on future possibilities. This is what it's going to help you tap into. The second thing that the future self helps you with is that it's driven by your aspirations and your goals. So what I do with my clients on their very first consultation call is we get really clear on what your 3-year vision is. asking yourself if you had a magic wand and you could have everything you wanted in the next 3 to 5 years, what would that look like? And a lot of people get stumped on this because they're stuck in the current story, the current identity, the current challenges. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I just want enough to live. And I'm like, don't you want more? Like, don't you want to dream bigger? This is how I know people are stuck is when they can't dream. So we want to start tapping into the vision, into the aspirations, the goals for the future. And then we need to consider who do we need to become in order to create those goals, in order to see it in the real you want to create, whether you want $1 million business, your business, whether you want to launch a podcast, write a book, whatever the thing is, you will need to become a person that can handle that, that has the capacity for that thing. So your ambition, your dreams, your desire, your values will significantly shape your potential self identity. And what I like to talk about is none of this is ever about being perfect. So I want you to hear me. It's always about practicing. So I like to say it's not about being perfect, it's about practicing your potential. So you practice tapping into your potential self, even just 1 to 2% more each day, and you will start to become that person. Now I'm a morning person. Now I just do my morning routine. Now I always do it. Like it's just part of who I am to the point where sometimes people want me to like get up and get started. I'm like, no, I have a morning routine to do. And they might be frustrated about it. I'm like, well, this is my morning routine. This is what I do. This is how I start my morning. It's just who I become, right? Whereas before I would sleep in, I'd be grouchy, I'd like drag myself out of bed. Now I'm like, I love mornings. I get up, I do my gratitudes, I do meditation, do journaling, I use my self-care app, I go for a walk. Like I just love the morning now because I created that identity, right? And then the third thing, this potential self-identity is going to be the core motivating factor for you. This is your driving force to pursue your personal goals and overcome challenges. This is also going to help you make decisions. So, for example, there are still times when my old self, right, my grouchy, non morning person self, when I'm thinking about getting up for a 7 a.m. networking meeting and I've got to drive 35 minutes to get there, my old grouchy, non morning person self is like, I don't want to, right? And then I remember, I'm like, no, this is my future potential self identity. Now I'm tapping into the identity of a millionaire, $1 million business. That person gets up and goes across town with a smile and positive energy and adds value and shows up to those events. So remember, just because you create a new potential self identity doesn't mean that you're not still going to have those old thoughts. But what we do is we challenge them each time and you reset your identity each time those old thoughts and beliefs come up. So, this is how we do it. I'm going to tell you a couple of my thoughts about myself and about life in general. And you can start to adopt some of these thoughts about yourself as well. And you're seeing me do this in real time because I decided to start this podcast. I had a podcast back in 2017, early on in my health coaching business. And I realized that back then I really was kind of like, it's fine. I don't have that many people following me. Like, I want to do it, but like, I'm not going to be that consistent. Like, I kind of was very low key about it. And this time I decided I am relaunching my podcast. I am out in the world to be consistent and to consistently offer value. And this was one of the things I've been working on for the past 7 years. I've gotten so good at it, meaning like I show up on social media all the time. But the one thing is I wasn't sure about going back to a weekly podcast show. I was like, ooh, I don't know if that old version of me could show up like this. But the future version of me, the $1 million business owner, absolutely shows up all the time. And I actually got this from a podcast called the Life Coach School podcast that has now been retired, but it was on the air for 10 years. And I went, and I was not a listener until recently, but I went and binge listened 150 episodes. And then I listened backwards to like the 500th episode. And I realized this person, Brooke Castillo, has put in 10 years of value, 10 years of consistency. And so for me, when I thought of relaunching my podcast, before I was thinking about like proving myself. I was thinking about like having a podcast means you've made it. Now I'm like, oh, this is the platform for me to put out value. And how amazing will it be for me to have this legacy of 10 years of content, 10 years of value, 10 years of a commitment. So when I thought about this podcast, I was like, that is what I'm thinking of. And I love podcasts. I listen to them all the time, day, night. Like you become best friends with the podcast host. So that's what you're seeing me do here is recreating this $1 million business owner identity. Okay. All right. So here's some thoughts about myself. I am getting paid to figure this out. I know how to solve problems. I am bigger than any and every problem presented to me. I am a leader. I am the person who goes first. I am a person who keeps going no matter what. I never give up. Everything is always working out for me, even and especially when I can't see it. I know how to create money. I know what I'm doing. I can do hard things, and it's okay for it to be easy. I'm always either winning or learning. I learn my lessons quickly and deeply. I'm not afraid to feel ashamed, embarrassed, rejected, or like a failure. I am proud of my resolve and resiliency. I create results. Okay, so that is a taste of a few of the thoughts that I think about myself on purpose as my identity. And I want you to sit with this and really think about number one, what do you want to create in the next 3 years? Number two, who do you need to become in order to create that? And we start becoming that now. I'll give you another example of this and then we'll close out today's session. So, back when I went to Bali in 2018, I was transitioning from my health coaching business into life coaching. And I was having a little bit of drama about being able to coach everybody on everything, right? I was like, I'm good at coaching on like self love and body image and mindset and health, but I wanted to be able to coach on relationships and business and perfectionism and all of those things. So, I invested $5,000 to go to Bali on a 10-day retreat. I think it was actually a 4-day retreat, but I stayed for 10 days. And when I went there, I created a new identity. And the reason I was feeling drama about becoming a life coach is because I was just coming out of a 9-year relationship with a narcissist, which meant I was a codependent, which meant I wanted him to approve of me. I saw myself as successful because I was dating him. I looked to him for everything and also let him tell me really negative things about myself because I believed that. I had low self-worth. And so I was always about it looking good from the outside, but not actually being good. So it took me 9 years to get through that. And I had to hire a relationship coach and I had to work through that to finally break up with that person. But when I went to Bali, I was like, okay, I want to create a partner that loves me deeply, that respects me, that we have open communication and conversations, like basically the opposite of everything of the relationship I just came out of. So when I went to Bali, I set up this potential self, this future self identity. Because if you want to create something, especially in relationship, right? If you want to create a partnership, whether it's an intimate relationship or it's a business partner or it's your next client, you need to become a vibrational match, which essentially means you need to embody. If you want somebody to be loving and kind, you must be loving and kind to yourself. So I needed to become loving and kind to myself so that I could attract a partner that would also be loving and kind to me. You can't have it both ways, right? You can't seek that self love externally. You always have to have it from the inside first. And so this is the same thing if you're looking to create any other thing in your life, in your business, in your health, in your finances. If you want to become abundant and rich and you want to stop worrying about money, you've got to stop worrying about money now. You have to become the person who is okay no matter what is going on financially. Because your future self, who has all the money, who has whatever it is, your 6-figure business or your $1 million business, they don't worry about money. They've learned how to handle it. They've learned how to invest it. They learned how to save it. So you have to practice becoming that person now. Now, This is very simple. This is very straightforward. You could go and listen to this episode and then go journal about who you need to become. But the tricky part is putting this into practice. So, what I find is working through your potential self over a period of 6 months is the right amount of time to make lasting change. This is why I coach my clients for 6 months, is because we need to undo all of these thoughts that you've been thinking for 30, 40, 50 years and start replacing them with new thoughts about your capability, your capacity, your resilience, your intelligence, your ability to create results. And what'll happen is self-doubt will come up, then a failure will come up, and this is when self-sabotage gets in the way. So 6 months is an ideal time frame to work through these things. And if you want to know more about this, it's a perfect time to book a free consultation call. There's a link down below. You can go ahead and click that link, camikennedy.vip, book a free consultation. On the call, we will go through what are your goals? What are your challenges? And then we're going to solve them right on the call. And we can decide if it's a good fit to work together as a 6-month one-on-one client. And even if not, you will get massive value and clarity by getting on a consultation call with me. So let's start working on this identity. This is the thing that is going to create result in your life. And before you know it, it will just become who you are. And you will be like, oh my gosh, it used to be so hard for me to wake up in the morning. It used to be so hard for me to show up on social media. And then it just becomes who you are all the time and it becomes effortless. That is what we want for you. So you create the results that you want. You start feeling good on purpose. You start having positive thoughts on purpose. And you start creating positive results.